Hey friend, you are listening to the Pro Organizers Coach podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Brown. I'm a professional home organizer, decluttering specialist, and business coach. I created POC to empower you to reach new heights in your business. Through insightful interviews, expert guidance, and actionable strategies, we will equip you with the tools that you need to excel. This podcast is not just about tidying up spaces. It's about building a supportive sisterhood of passionate professional organizers. Whether you're a seasoned pro or you're just starting out, this podcast is for you. So let's do this. Welcome back to the Pro Organizers Coach podcast. Today I have Jody Lasky, and she is from introvertfounder.com, which I love the name of that, by the way. And today we're going to be talking about how to prioritize, are you ready for this? Your business's never-ending to-do list. And I know that hit you right in the gut because it hit me too when I was reading it and we were talking about it. I'm like, yes, please tell me how to deal with that, because it's every day. Every day there's a nice big list of stuff. And if there's not, we go looking for things to add to the list of stuff. And she has a thing called the Agile Framework that she would like to share with us on how we can get help for our never-ending to-do list. So thank you, Jody, for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and then we'll jump into the topic.
Like Samantha said, my name is Jody Lasky, and I am the Introvert Founder. I coach startup founders. Shocking, right? I work with a lot of solopreneurs and people with service-based companies, and I work with people who are building products. Totally different challenges, all three groups, but service-based businesses are definitely have to get creative to try to scale that. So that's always fun for me. I started coaching when I was a founder and started talking to people, and just couldn't keep my mouth shut. So giving giving advice and my opinion is just, something I can't help myself but do. So I started coaching, stopped for a while during the pandemic, and now I have restarted.
Love it. And then did you start back up with the same type of coaching, or did it evolve as you went?
A little of both. I still work with the same clientele. I have probably the same style because I am me, but I have rebranded dramatically. The other was a catchphrase of mine, and some people found it offensive, and so I won't say it on your podcast now. But so I rebranded for more opportunities.
I love that, because a lot of us that are starting, and this theme has been coming up recently in the last few episodes I've been doing, of just, falling forward and getting it out there, imperfect as it is, but starting at some point instead of staying in that analysis paralysis and all the things that we can get into as business owners. And so I love that. All right. So today we're talking about your Agile framework and how that can help us in our business with our never-ending to-do list. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that framework and kind of maybe how you came up with it or what it is?
Sure. So I'm a bit of a geek, and I worked in IT for a long time. And within IT, there is something called the Agile Development Framework. And that's a way of developing software quickly, not really worrying about it being perfect, not worrying about it being complete, getting something out there every 2 to 4 weeks so you can test it. And you're always making progress, and you always have something out there that you can make money with, instead of, nope, until, like what you were saying, until everything's perfect, I can't move, which was the old way of developing software. And I sat there thinking, you know what? We do that with businesses all the time. So I took the concept and I apply it to building businesses and prioritizing workload and getting things done.
Love it. That is so good. Because exactly what you said, where the old way used to be, hold on to it until it's perfect. But again, that's the old way of doing things. It doesn't get you anywhere. You don't even know what you don't know until you put it out and then start tweaking it. And one of the most powerful things I ever heard someone say, and it was on a podcast, but I don't remember whose, but she was talking about how she shows up every day in her business as a student ready to learn. And she had like a $5 billion company and like all the things. But she said, I every day I just show up as a student, willing to learn and willing to figure out what I don't know, and then doing it again each day, doing it again. And as long as we come into our business with that like open heart of learning and coming as a student, nothing we do is going to fail. It may take a little bit of time to progress, but it's not going to fail because we're going to learn as we go.
Absolutely. And that's in psychology terms called a growth mindset. And it's actually associated with living a longer life. So definitely a great attitude to have with everything you do. And failure is also, everyone wants to think of failure as this bad, awful thing. If you have learned something, you have not failed. I've shut down several businesses. You know, some people would say they failed. My mother would probably say they failed. But I learned something from each and every one.
Yeah, it's the same with me with the podcast. My first podcast was called Her Healed Heart. I went in very broad. I was going to help people spiritually, emotionally, physically declutter. Like I didn't know I was just starting a podcast, but that was like my heart was, I wanted to help people. And I had a woman leave a message and she's like, everything you're offering, I can get at church for free. And that, like, it went all over me. But she was right. I wasn't specific enough. Like, but had I never started that when I started Pro Organizers Coach, I wouldn't have known how to edit. I wouldn't have known how to do the art. Like, all the things that I learned along the way in those 13 episodes prepared me to do this and to do this one correctly. So 100%, I don't consider it a failure. I consider it a stepping stone, even though I no longer do it.
Absolutely. And there's a meme that keeps going around, and I think I meant to see it, that your first podcast is going to be awful. The first episode will be awful, but the only way you make it to the 100th episode that's great is if you do the first one.
Yes. And it's the same with business. It's the same with the first time we get a phone call as a professional organizer, the first time we go on a consultation, the first couple of clients we work with. All of those are stepping stones that we may, and 99.9% of us are going to be awful at in the beginning. And the fear of failure sometimes creeps in and keeps us from doing those things. And so if you're someone listening and the fear of failure has been plaguing you, maybe step out in the imperfection. And if you need the permission, I am giving it to you right now.
Me too.
Yes. And so, okay, perfect. So what does Agile, like, does it stand for an acronym or?
Nope, it really is just about being flexible. So because you're learning every 2 weeks, you're iterating every 2 weeks. So you have this plan for what you're going to do. You have these big, huge plans. And if you spend a year on this big, huge plan, like what we were just talking about, and then it doesn't work, well, you've just lost a year. And even if you've learned something, is it enough versus the year? But if you only take 2 weeks and you can learn that same thing or enough of that same thing in 2 weeks to adjust a little bit and try again, and adjust a little bit and try again. That's what the Agile development process is about. And for building your business, what it's also about is I look at it in 1 week. It's about knowing you cannot do your whole to-do list in a week, knowing you shouldn't even try, prioritizing it, using some very high level time estimating, like not, is this going to take 10 minutes or 15, but it's something called t-shirt sizing. Like, is this a kid's small or an adult's extra large, right? In terms of how big this is. And you get to choose whether that's about time or the mental difficulty of doing it. I hate making phone calls. I know a phone call will only take 3 minutes, calling to to make a dentist appointment or cancel a dentist appointment or whatever. I know it will take 3 minutes. The person on the other end will not think twice about it and it'll be fine. I have to psych myself up for it. For me, that's, I know it's a 5-minute thing. It's at least a medium on my to-do list.
I love how you say that, because for each one of us, that thing's going to be different, right? Like what we consider hard versus what we consider easy is going to be 100% different for everyone. And so being able to grade each thing on the to-do list of how difficult it is for you to do, whether it is mental or physical, that part doesn't really matter. It's when you look at something, you're like, oh gosh, like that feeling you get. Okay, well then that may be something harder. Where if it's something that you're like, ooh, yay, let me do that. Okay, well then that's probably a lot easier for you to do. And so if for me, I had like, my items and I had my to-do list and I go through and I kind of grade each thing of, let's say, easy, medium, or hard, for instance.
Yep.
Then once I've done that, what would I then do with my list?
Okay, so remember that the scoring is not just difficulty, but also time. So something that you're really excited about, but will take 4 hours is still going to be a large or whatever.
Okay.
Because it's also about time. So then you look at your calendar and you say, what does my week look like? How many clients am I serving? What other activities do I have going on? When is my most productive time? That's the time I like to protect. And I highly recommend that all of your listeners protect. If you're really most effective in the morning, don't schedule clients then. That is your focused work time. If you are dragging in the afternoon, that's your time to go do something that energizes you. So if that's working with clients, that's when you work with clients. That's not when you do the stuff that you don't want to do. So you time block your schedule. You only look a week at a time. The new ideas that we all have during the week, the new business owners, we all have good idea fairies come visit. Once you set your priorities for the week, you do not change them. Those good ideas go on what I call the product backlog. So instead of staring at your whole long to-do list every day, once you've decided what you're doing for the week, you put them on a separate list and you don't even look at the long list unless you have to add something to it. Then you can jot it down, only jot it down. Don't look at anything else. Don't think about it. Whatever you need to do to remember the good idea. And then for me and my schedule, Saturday mornings, I take half an hour. I add any details I need to the good idea list. I reprioritize because that's part of how you select what is the most important. And I'll explain what I mean by that in just a second. But then, so you look at that, you've sized everything. And then on Sunday evening, so you have distance, which is one of my big things is don't try to rush through. But when you have some distance, you look at the list, you look at your top priorities, you look at your calendar. How much can I really get done this week? Realistically get done. You take those, you put them on your new list. If you can, you assign them to the day that you're going to do them. And then the big list goes away until next Saturday. And you don't look at that big long list that paralyzes us because none of that stuff matters.
Honestly, for me, I was sitting here thinking my big long to-do list, what I'm doing wrong, I have it on my phone where I see it constantly. And it does paralyze me. When I look at that list, I'm literally like, ugh. Or when I'm bringing stuff over from like the day before that I didn't get done and trying to add it to the next day when I really don't have the time because I've already got that day planned out. I'm literally just keeping the stress with me, essentially. Yeah.
Right. And so anything you don't get done when it's assigned to be done, like what you just said, if you don't finish everything on Wednesday that you're supposed to, you add it to Thursday. That's fine. But by my framework, on Saturday, you take anything you didn't get done that week, you add it back to the master to-do list. You add it into the priorities. Maybe the reason you didn't do it is it wasn't as important as you thought. You reprioritize and then on Sunday you select again. Things don't carry over naturally from one week to the next. They are gone. That week is over. You take what you learned. On Friday afternoon, you spend a little while looking at how much you thought you would be able to get done versus how much you actually got done. So on Sunday, you know to either take more for the next week or to take less. And that's part of the agile. That's part of how we learn how much we can get done and be realistic while also being kind to ourselves. Because that feeling that you have when you see that big, long to-do list, that paralysis, the anxiety people feel, the need, if you watch anything about startups and the hustle culture, the need to go, 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 that's not any way to live a life. Way to bring the best part of you to your clients is to be calm and centered and focused, which means not having all that. So if you can only get 5 things on your to-do list done in a week, that's great. You got the 5 things done you wanted to do. That's it. Fabulous. The only person you're competing with is yourself.
Absolutely. And our own standards that we've put on ourselves, which is why I love that you said, and be kind to yourself. That is huge when you're starting a business, is the being kind to yourself, because we look at social media, or we look at whatever our, or we have the thoughts that maybe our parents put on us, or who knows where they came from, right?
Yes.
But the fact that it's there and that we put it and we're like, all right, just add it to my shoulders, let me just keep trying to get through. But like you said, that's no way to live a life. When a lot of us want to start businesses or started our businesses so we would have more time with our family, so we would have a better life, so we could work a 20-hour work week or whatever those goals are that we wanted in the beginning, all of a sudden those aren't important anymore. Just give me a 50-hour work week and let me barely push through and let me not do dinner or not do all the things that were the reason we started in the first place.
My first step when I work with my clients is figuring out their long-term goals, helping them set long-term dreams. Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? How do we get you there? And setting 1-year goals. And then for me, what I do and what I recommend, the lock screen on your computer that you see every time you open your computer, my goals are right there. I am reminded of them every time I open my computer. Every time I walk away for a few minutes and it locks, I'm reminded of my goals. And that helps keep focused. Part of the prioritization each week is this a legal requirement that it get done now? Taxes, things like that. Does it actively get me closer to my goal? If the answer is no, then why are you doing it?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times because we, like I was saying before we hit record, a lot of me and my listeners and just who we are as human beings, we want to help people. And sometimes we let that come in the way of making money. Like we almost have this mindset of like, well, I can't make a lot of money and help people.
So here's something I've learned over the years. I never give discounts. If someone wants to work with me, they pay the full price. If I want to work with someone, I do it for free. When we set the rates and we are in charge, we can make those decisions. I always limit how many people at a time I'm going to do that with, because I'm a service-based business just like you are, and scaling a service-based business means more of my time, right? So you limit, in advance how many per month, per quarter, per year, however you want to track it, that you'll do for free. But if there's someone you want to work with, you do it.
I love that, because I think the guilt almost comes from this place of not, I want to help everybody. I just want to make sure I'm helping somebody. Right? And so if I know that every quarter I have 2 people that I give an organizing session to for free, or whatever that number is and time frame for whoever's listening. But if I have some kind of framework set up of how many I know I'm going to do, then no matter what, it's like, oh, well, of course I have to charge the rest of the people, but I know I'm at least helping 2 people per quarter or whatever those numbers are. But I think it's just knowing that we're at least giving back to somebody that otherwise could not afford it. It doesn't have to be everybody, but just somebody. Hey, friend, are you getting stuck in the challenges of launching or growing your business? Do you feel overwhelmed by all of the things that you think you quote unquote should be doing? Girl, I have been exactly where you are, which is why I am now offering Unstuck coaching sessions. For just $77, you get 60 minutes of one-on-one personalized support and the expert guidance that you need to navigate your way to success. Don't let obstacles hold you back any longer. This coaching is the answer you've been searching for. Are you ready to know exactly what your next steps are? Book your session today and rediscover the hope and clarity that you need to thrive. Go to proorganizerscoach.com or click the link in the show notes, and I will see you there.
Well, and your service is a help whether or not they've paid for it, right? So there's different kinds of help. You are helping every client. And if you're not, they're going to not pay you. So it's really easy to know if you're helping someone. They paid you.
Right. I love that. The fact that you just said help comes in different forms. The fact that they paid us means we helped them.
People will let you know if they didn't get enough value out of you. So no, if they paid you and they didn't complain, if they referred you, you absolutely helped them. And the reason I say to set a number per quarter, per month, whatever, is it becomes really easy to say, all right, they really want to work with me and can't afford it. So I'll do it for them for free, this person for free. It's a lot harder if you say, I can work with this person or I can wait and maybe work with someone else for free. If it's limited, you think about it more. We as women tend to be really generous with our time with other people to our own detriment. And that's one of those things that I do to try to limit that a bit.
Yeah, that's amazing because we all do that, like you said, as women. And especially as like heart-centered women, we absolutely do that between our family, our friends, our businesses, like everything else gets the time before us. And it's almost a natural instinct that we don't even give it much thought. But we have to think about it because as organizers, our body, our mental well-being, our physical well-being, if we don't make those things last, we're not going to have a business for very long.
Yep. Which is why setting those limits, deciding your work hours. Entrepreneurs, especially at first, tend to say, I'm self-employed, so I can work any hours I want. And that translates into, I wake up when I want, I do it, or I have to get up at 5 a.m. and work until my head hits the bed. Having a set schedule makes it all much easier. You know what to expect. Those around you know what to expect, especially if you work from home. If you haven't done that before, people think if you're home, you're not working. You have to set the expectations. I am not available from X time to Y time. But at Y time, I have a close down ritual. For me, it's how much of what I expected to get done did I get done? How long, did I drink enough water? Did I take enough steps? Did I take the breaks I needed during the day? Those kinds of things. Any notes that I need for the next day, I look at my calendar and my journal for the next day, and then I close them up and I am done. At 6 o'clock, I'm done.
Yeah. And having those boundaries, like I heard it said not too long ago, and I thought this was so profound. Setting boundaries for ourselves with others is actually a way to show them love because exactly what you said, all of a sudden they know what to expect. And if we put those boundaries in place, not only are we protecting ourselves, which is valuable, we are also teaching the other people around us how to treat us and what to expect from us. And so then all of a sudden, everybody's on the same page. No more arguing, no more fussing, no more none of that.
A quick intro to this. I have ADHD, and there are a lot of women who have ADHD, probably a lot of men, but I talk more to women with ADHD, who suffer from something called rejection sensitivity disorder. I generally don't, but I know a lot who do. And that is the little slights they take as the end of the world. We catastrophize. Part of ADHD that most people don't realize is that we are really good at catastrophizing everything. And with our interpersonal relationships, that means, if someone doesn't respond to a text as fast as they usually do, oh my God, they hate me. Opposed to, they were in the middle of something and, the phone wasn't next to them. So when you set boundaries, you can easily tell the people around you, I'm in the middle of X. I'll get back to you later. And they don't think that, oh my God, you're saying that you must hate me. Oh my God, she didn't take my call. She must hate me. Oh my God, he didn't respond to my text in time. No, I've told you, if you contact me in these times, you're not going to hear back from me. No one can reach me from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. except for a few close family members. My phone just doesn't do it. Leave me a text, leave me a voicemail. I'll get back to you tomorrow. My time is my own. I started doing this way before cell phones. In the olden days of people actually having to call and leave messages, I decided that I had phones for my convenience and I had voicemail for other people's. I answered the phone when I felt like it, even before it was cool. There's a million ways to leave me a message. I'll get it. I'll respond when it's convenient for me. Protecting our time, protecting our hearts, protecting the people who are important to us, giving them that time when we say we're going to also means they do the same for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps everyone, specifically family, because it's hard for our kids and our husband, exactly what you said earlier, to understand, oh, mommy's on the phone or on the computer, phone, whatever, but I can't bother her. But she's in the office. She's right there. Why can't I just walk in? And she's the rest of the time when she's home, she's doing everything for me. She's cooking me dinner. She's helping me with laundry. She's doing all the things. And then now all of a sudden there's boundaries in place. But what I've realized, especially in these podcast recordings, that is what has helped me get to a place where I tell my family, all right, from this time to this time, we're live. No one open the door. And it took them some time to get used to it. But once they have, now from this time to this time, I'm working. I cannot answer you. Sorry. And it helps.
And yes, we all understand when you have really little kids, you may have to get a co-working space. You may have to actually leave. Not ideal. Understand. But there's a limit to what a young child can understand.
Absolutely.
From the time they can walk themselves into your office until they're, old enough to get it. And the more you explain, the earlier you start to explain, the younger they'll be when they get it and can handle things by themselves for half an hour or an hour or whatever.
Yeah. And that helps us to also with our to-do list, because if we know from this time to this time, or, like you said, even if it's 30 minutes, an hour to whatever time, oh, the baby's taking a nap. Okay. So during nap time, I can at least get these few things done. All of a sudden, the list that you've put together, it really does matter if what you're doing is at the top of the list or at the bottom, because if I only have an hour or two, I better be doing things that are going to be moving the needle forward. But how do I even know what's going to be moving the needle forward if I have this crazy to-do list and I've not set up the priority of the top to the bottom of what actually matters? And so I love that you do that weekly, because I think, obviously, if we were looking at it daily, it would become super overwhelming. But the fact that it's set up 4 times a month, but like every Saturday, taking the list, and then by Sunday, and like you said, even Saturday evenings, re-looking at, did I do good? Did I not? Or like, was that too much? Was that not enough? Do I need to add more things or take away things? And being very realistic with ourselves. Because if we put too much on ourselves, we set ourselves up for failure in our own minds.
Absolutely. So the other trick is how you put things on your list. If, for instance, it is you are just starting and you're going to build yourself a website. Build a website is very overwhelming and you're not going to get it done in an hour.
Right.
If it is something that's important to you, it's choose my domain, find a host, set up host, choose colors, break all of those things down. There's a site called Goblin Tools. If you don't know how to break something down into its component parts, Goblin Tools, you tell it what you need to do and it'll break it down. And if it's still too detailed, you tell it to break it down more and it will. Fabulous little website. So, on the one hand, you go from one thing, build a website, to like 50 things. But that's why you don't look at the full list most of the time. You look at this week.
I love it. Yes. Because I'm absolutely this weekend setting this up for myself because as you're talking and as, the awareness is coming over me of how I do my list, of course I'm overwhelmed. Every day when I look at my week, it looks like everything's good, right? Like I have everything color coordinated. I have it set up by the days. But if every day I'm pulling things over I didn't get done from the day before, by like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have this whole list of, and then I half the time end up pulling it into Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So now all of a sudden my next week is just as quote unquote jam packed to where, but like you said, I don't even know if I've re-looked over the things. I just keep taking it into the next day. So of course I'm overwhelmed and I end up watching Netflix.
And that's what we do. We shut down. Our brains can't handle it. I actually tell people when you get to that point, don't try to push through. Take a walk. Watch Netflix if you have more willpower than I do and can turn it off after, less than 6 hours. I acknowledge my weaknesses and that is one of them. But yeah, find that thing to break the cycle because that's what all of those things do. Those times that we look unproductive are not wastes of time. Your brain is still processing. Your brain is figuring things out. And even if your brain has gone totally silent, that means you needed the rest. Only way it's a waste is if you beat yourself up while you're doing it so you don't get the rest out of it.
That's so good because it's true. We take the time that we could have for rest and we feel all of this guilt. We're more stressed at the end of our rest time than we were at the beginning. When if we would actually use it for rest, we would be rejuvenated. We'd be ready to go. Like we would feel so much better. And it's not that we mean to, it's just we've almost been taught to, or I don't know what it is, social media, who knows, whatever, all the things, the mindset work, the everything. But as women, it's like we feel like we should be able to get all the things done and perfectly do everything. And we just pull in all this mom guilt, all this wife guilt, all, the business guilt.
We have too many messages coming to us in this culture that we should be productive all the time. And if we are not being productive all the time, what good are we? What are we worth? I'm worth the same amount, okay, my weakness is my house and I feel bad saying this to people who love organization. I'm sorry. I've accepted my weakness, this particular weakness of mine, because I would rather walk my dog for an hour a day. I have 1 hour a day free. I'm going to walk my dog, not clean the house, not declutter the house. I deal with the dirt, but that hour of walking my dog is more important to me, even if I can't have anyone in my house.
Right. Well, and I think us figuring out for ourselves what is important to us. We let everyone else tell us what should be important to us. And I think we have to take that time and figure out, what do I actually care about? What do I actually enjoy? Because that's going to also help us when we're building this list and when we are looking at the list. If we don't have the correct perspective of what I should, quote unquote, be doing versus what I am ready to do or what I want to do. And so I love that you said it's a time blocking thing. It's looking at the time, but then it's also looking at how hard is it for me mentally, emotionally, that kind of thing. Because I think a lot of people either take one or the other. They don't look at both of them and then decide.
Yep. And you choose whatever is the right approach for you to do your sizing, to do your priority list, to do all of those things. It's all about what's important to you. And that's also why I start, like I said, I take my clients, to their dream. What does their 5-year dream look like? What does their 3-year dream look like? Where do they have to be in 1 year to make those a reality? And then we set goals. And I always insist that at least one be personal. So remember that you are a complete person, not just a business owner. But it's also so that when you start getting into these shoulds or how best use of my time right now. Well, if my goal is to, in 5 years, have the money saved to, quit corporate America and do this full time or travel it, live in an RV with my family. Well, I'm saying family is important. And if they're important in 5 years, they're important now. And if you wait 5 years, why are you bothering?
Yeah. It reminds me of when me and my husband first got married. We lived in this teeny tiny little duplex. And then we had our kids. And so then I kept saying, because I was someone that later on had to teach myself how to declutter. I was not always this way. And so back then I used to say, well, when we get a bigger house, this, when we get a bigger house, that, when the kids grow up, this, when the kids grow up, that. And one day my husband called me out and he was just like, if you're not doing it now, you're not going to do it when we get more stuff and more money and a bigger house. And I'm like, oh, that one hit me like somewhere deep inside and was so true.
So sometimes they pay attention and
yeah. And so the point is wherever you are now, start there. Don't try to do a list or a should or whatever the thing is from someone who is 5 steps ahead of you. That's, I think, where we're getting it wrong is we look at the people like just today, I did a boot camp from a lady that I follow that is actually following her teachings and courses, is how I started the podcast, all the things. And I'm watching her, but she's 6 years in. So of course my podcast doesn't look like hers. Of course my programs don't look like hers. And, there for a minute I got jealous. Then I was like, no. Good for you, girl. Like, get it. It was like my thought, my mindset and stuff. But as she was teaching these things in the boot camp that I was taking, I had to kind of pull it back and be like, all right, now how does that apply to me now, where I am 50 episodes in, not 600 episodes in?
And the big thing to take away from where she is today is it means in 6 years you can be there. There are no exceptions. There is no one-offs in the world. So if she did it, you can do it.
Yes. Just bring your expectations of overnight success down.
Overnight success usually takes about 10 years.
Right. No joke. Everyone I have interviewed for this podcast or talked to that are like these really successful women, every one of them, when you get to talking to them, they're like 15 years in, 20 years. Like they've been doing this for a very long time, which gives me inspiration But if I'm looking at them and expecting to be where they are, and I'm only a year in, let's say, then of course I'm setting myself up for failure every time because my mindset is not where it should be. I am, and I hate to even use the word should after the conversation we just had, but I've got to bring my expectations down. And I think a lot of us get in that FOMO almost, thinking like, oh, well, if I can't do it now, then it's never going to happen for me. If it's not happening right now, it's never going to happen. Or give me 6 months and I'll have an entire corporation that I own, like one or the other. And the reason I say these things is because I myself have walked through everything I talk about, and getting certified as a life coach, like that helped me more than anything. Like I did it originally for my clients, but through the process, the mindset shifts I had and the way I learned to like look at things differently was so valuable. And, getting my own coach and all of the things that I did, like it changes things because all of a sudden, instead of just living every day, you're actually taking time for yourself to look at things from an outside perspective.
Yep. So I was asked recently, do you coach yourself? Would you hire yourself as a coach? And I journal every morning. I follow a process created by Julia Cameron called Morning Pages. And every morning for over 3 years now, I spend 45 minutes to an hour, however long it takes, 3 pages of a journal. So I essentially coach myself all the time. And there are days where I hate myself because, it's in black and white and okay, fine. Now I have to do it. But yeah, like you said, you start seeing the things that you thought you were doing this for other people, but you benefit yourself, to include knowing that you need your own coach. My clients are always shocked to find out that I have a coach, but you are a coach. Yes. Which is how I know I don't know enough to not have one.
Absolutely. And I also know the value thereof of having a coach that is a few steps ahead of me on whatever journey that is that I'm on, as long as they can hold the space for you and ask powerful questions. And for me, also be a few steps ahead in business. Yes, please sign me up. Like I'll be there tomorrow because I know that if I'm trying to do this on my own, I'm only going to get so far. But if I am doing this and I have support from other people around me, whether that's a coach, whether that's family, whatever that is, for me, support is like everything. So where can people, I know I mentioned at the beginning, but tell us a little bit. So it's introvertfounder.com. Yep. And on there, do you have like a coaching program or like what's your kind of thing that you offer?
Right now I only do one-on-one coaching. I am looking at creating a community to help people really work through this process in groups, working together to figure out sizing, things like that to just make it easier. But that's a few months away. And if you go to my website, you'll get my goal setting approach. But if you want my Agile framework for your listeners, go to introvertfounder.com/clutter.
Oh.
And your listeners will be able to download my framework.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I love that. Because, especially as organizers, a lot of times we're more visual, like we like to have things in front of us, something we can see. Thank you so, so much for offering to the listeners the Agile framework. And so for you listening, make sure to go over and spend some time on Jody's website. Again, it's introvertfounder.com, and you will find all of the links in the show notes below. And Jody, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Samantha, it was wonderful spending the time with you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Pro Organizers Coach podcast. If you've gotten any value from today's episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us grow, and it warms my heart to hear from you. And make sure to stay connected with us on socials at Pro Organizers Coach. Then go to proorganizerscoach.com to find all the ways that we can help you succeed in your business. You have the power to make a difference in people's lives through decluttering and organization. Keep honing your skills, embracing those challenges, and fostering connections within our organizing community. Progress will come with every step, so keep pushing forward and you will achieve your dreams. Girl, you've got this.